In the twilight shadows of the Ottoman Empire, as the 19th century waned and the 20th dawned, the imperial harem, once a bastion of unassailable tradition and veiled power, opened itself at the crossroads of antiquity and modernity. This was the era of Sultan Abdulhamid II, who ascended the throne in 1876, amid the crumbling edifice of an empire besieged by internal strife and external pressures. Ruling until his deposition in 1909, known as the Red Sultan to his detractors for his autocratic grip and suppression of dissent, and as a reformer by his admirers for his efforts to centralize and modernize the state. Abdulhamid's reign encapsulated the paradoxes of a fading superpower. The harem, that enigmatic inner sanctum of the palace, underwent profound transformations during these years, reflecting broader societal shifts, the lingering echoes of the Tanzimat reforms, the infiltration of Western ideas through diplomacy and technology, and the gradual erosion of seclusion as education and global connectivity reshaped women's roles. Far from the opulent, intrigue-laden harems of earlier centuries under Suleiman or Abdulhamid's harem at Yildiz Palace was a microcosm of an empire in flux, a place where silk veils met photographic lenses, where Circassian slaves learned French alongside Quranic verses, and where the Sultan's paranoia intertwined with his vision for a modern Ottoman identity. This narrative unravels the story of the last harem, its relocation and restructuring, the daily rhythms infused with modern influences, the key women who navigated its hierarchies, the processes of modernization that pierced its walls, and the inexorable decline that heralded the end of an era, culminating in the Young Turk Revolution and the harem's dissolution. To understand the harem's evolution under Abdulhamid, one must first grasp the Sultan's ascent and the turbulent context that shaped his rule. Born in 1842, in the opulent confines of Topkapi Palace, Abdulhamid was the son of Sultan Abdulmajid I and his consort Timuçin Kad I, inheriting a lineage steeped in reformist zeal from the Tanzimat period 1839 to 1876, which had sought to westernize the empire's bureaucracy, legal system, and military to stave off European encroachment. Abdulhamid's early life was marked by seclusion in the palace, where he honed skills in carpentry, crafting exquisite furniture that adorned his later residencies, and developed a passion for opera, poetry, and detective novels like those of Sherlock Holmes, which he translated and avidly read. Ascending amid the Russo-Turkish War of 1877 to 1878, which cost the empire vast territories in the Balkans, Abdulhamid suspended the short-lived 1876 constitution, dissolving parliament to consolidate power in his hands. His reign was characterized by a blend of conservatism and pragmatism. He championed pan-Islamism to unify Muslim subjects against colonial powers, yet extended railways like the Hejaz line to Mecca, reformed education with thousands of new schools, and modernized the bureaucracy with telegraph networks that spanned from Istanbul to Baghdad. This duality extended to the harem, which he relocated from the historic Dolmabahce Palace to the fortified Yildiz Palace in 1880, following assassination attempts, including a bombing by Armenian revolutionaries. Yildiz, perched on a hill overlooking the Bosphorus, was not just a residence but a sprawling complex of kiosks, gardens, and pavilions, a symbol of Abdulhamid's isolationist paranoia, guarded by a private army and riddled with secret passages. The harem's move here marked a downsizing. Spatial constraints in the two-story whale kiosk meant that many wives, unmarried sisters, and servants were dispersed to other palaces, reducing the once vast entourage of hundreds to a more manageable, intimate circle. This relocation was emblematic of modernization. Yildiz incorporated European architectural elements like neoclassical facades and iron structures, blending Ottoman grandeur with Western functionality, while its gardens featured imported flora and even a small zoo, reflecting the Sultan's curiosity about the natural sciences. Daily life in Abdulhamid's harem, though still veiled in seclusion, bore the imprints of late 19th century changes, evolving from the rigid protocols of earlier eras into a space where tradition met tentative reform. The hierarchical structure persisted, a pyramid of power with the valid Sultan Abdulhamid's adoptive mother, Rahima Peristu Sultan, until her death in 1904, at its apex, wielding authority over the women's quarters much like her predecessors. Below her were the Khadins, the official consorts limited to 4 by Islamic law, though Abdulhamid had up to 23 in total, including figures like Nazi Kadik, his first wife and mother of his daughter Alvi and Bedruf, who managed a harem after Peristu's passing. These women, often of Circassian or Abkhazian origin, sourced through the lingering slave trade despite its formal ban in 1854, underwent a transformation upon entry, conversion to Islam if needed, rigorous training in Turkish language and court etiquette, and assignment to roles based on beauty, talent, and favor. The lowliest qaris performed menial tasks, polishing intricate Iznik tiles in the hammam, preparing trays of baklava and sherbet in the kitchens scented with cardamom and rosewater, or tending to the lush gardens where peacocks strutted amid tulip beds. Promotion came through merit or the Sultan's gaze. Iqbal's favorites and gizds, the noticed enjoyed private apartments adorned with French mirrors and bohemian crystal, their days filled with embroidery, music lessons on the oud or piano, a nod to Western influences, and recitations of poetry from divans like those of Fuzuli. The chief black eunuch, or Kisler Akask, remained the enforcer of order, his network of white and black eunuchs patrolling corridors like silent guardians, intercepting messages and quelling rivalries that could erupt into whispered scandals or physical altercations. Yet, unlike the intrigue-heavy harems of the 17th century Sultanate of women, Abdulhamid's consorts were deliberately barred from political influence. The Sultan, scarred by his mother Besmiara Cadin's meddling in his youth, ensured no valet or Cadin meddled in state affairs, confining their power to domestic spheres. Meals were communal affairs in grand salons, with silver platters bearing pilafs and imported French wines, though Abdulhamid himself abstained, while evenings might feature theatrical performances or opera recitals in the Palace Theatre, where Sarah Bernhardt once performed, bridging Eastern seclusion with Western artistry. The processes of modernization permeated the harem's insulated world, driven by the Tanzimat's lingering momentum and Abdulhamid's strategic embrace of technology and diplomacy, reshaping women's roles in subtle yet profound ways. The Tanzimat reforms, initiated in 1839 and continuing under Abdulhamid until 1908, emphasized equality before the law, education, and bureaucratic efficiency, indirectly influencing the palace. Education became a cornerstone. Abdulhamid established over 10,000 schools and blending modern curricula with Islamic values, and this extended to the harem, where Caris and princesses studied French, geography, and mathematics alongside traditional arts. Daughters like Fatma, named Sultan, and Katie Sultan received progressive tutelage, learning to read European novels and compose letters in multiple languages, preparing them for a world beyond veils. Western fashion infiltrated after Empress Eugenie's 1868 visit to Abdulmajid's court, though predating Abdulhamid. Its effects lingered. An incident where Valid Partevnil slapped the French empress for perceived impropriety sparked curiosity, leading harem women to adopt lace collars, corsets, and Parisian gowns beneath their forresses, as seen in period photographs. Photography itself was a hallmark of Abdulhamid's modernization. An avid photographer, he commissioned albums of imperial life. Key figures in Abdulhamid's harem embodied this blend of tradition and transition, their lives weaving personal narratives into the empire's broader tapestry. Rahima Prestu Sultan Abdulhamid's adoptive mother and valet from 1876 to 1904, was a Circassian beauty who rose from slavery, her gentle demeanor masking a quiet influence over palace protocols. She oversaw the harem's daily harmonies, mediating disputes and arranging marriages for princesses like Zeki Sultan to future Grand Vizier. Bidrafila Kadin, a Georgian consort who bore several children, assumed managerial duties post-1904, her loyalty enduring through exile. Natsikeda Kadin, the first Kadin and mother of Ovi Sultan who tragically perished in a 1893 fire, her dress igniting from a candle represented maternal devotion amid palace perils. Other consorts like Sofanaz Nerfson Kadin, who divorced in 1879 after struggling with harem constraints, highlighted the emotional toll of seclusion, while Destizer Mfika Kadin remained a steadfast companion until Abdulhamid's death. The Sultan's daughters, such as Aik Sultan, chronicled harem life in memoirs, offering glimpses of piano lessons and French tutors that foreshadowed republican freedoms. Eunuchs like the Kisler Akask maintained order, but their power waned as modern bureaucracy encroached. Abdulhamid himself was a paradoxical patriarch, devoted to his family, composing lullabies for his children, yet enforcing strict hierarchies to prevent the political meddling that had plagued earlier reigns. Tragedies punctuated this world. Dulvi's death left the Sultan commissioning memorials, while joys like weddings blended Ottoman pomp with European waltzes. As the 19th century closed, the harem's decline accelerated, mirroring the empire's fragmentation under pressures from nationalism, economic woes, and colonial ambitions. The Balkan Wars of the 1870s had already shrunk Ottoman domains, fostering unrest that Abdulhamid quelled with his Hamidian regiments and censorship, but the harem felt the ripples. Reduced budgets led to fewer slaves and simpler attire, while European scrutiny via journalism and diplomacy exposed its inaction. The 1908 Young Turk Revolution, spearheaded by the Committee of Union and Progress, deposed Abdulhamid in 1909, exiling him to Salonika and dissolving the harem as a relic of absolutism. Consorts and slaves were pensioned off or integrated into society, many facing destitution in the Republic's dawn. The 1924 abolition of the Caliphate sealed the imperial family's fate. Modernization's double-edged railways connecting Istanbul to Europe, yet carrying revolutionary ideas, hastened this end. As educated harem women like Haled Edub Atavar emerged as feminists and nationalists, Yildiz Palace, once a fortress of seclusion, became a museum, its restored chambers in 2014 revealing faded frescoes and forgotten jewels. The legacy of Abdulhamid's harem endures as a symbol of Ottoman Twilight, a space where modernization chipped at tradition, empowering women through education while clinging to veils of hierarchy. It challenges stereotypes, revealing not mere sensuality but a forge of resilience amid empire's ebb. Abdulhamid II's harem, guardian of secrets in a modernizing storm, its dissolution, a harbinger of Turkey's rebirth. Reflect on this chapter of veils lifted and worlds remade, and ponder the women who bridged eras.